we're going to see the reshoring of manufacturing jobs and the offshoring of skilled, talented labor jobs. Like if I could take a job that I'm paying a bunch of people money for and then make it automatic or done cheaper, easier, faster, more reliable, doesn't take days off, then I think that we're headed towards an economic scenario where all of a sudden, I don't know if I want to pay Bobby $80,000 an hour to do a job that he used to get paid $50K an hour for. I don't know that I don't want to outsource that job, particularly again in the world of remote content production. I'll just speak to that. And if that work can be done remotely, completely remotely, and when I say completely remotely, they can film and edit without having to have even the fastest Wi-Fi, and they don't have to have the expensive computer that you need to have. And we're going to see a reverse tidal wave, I think. We're still living in a world where supply chains are completely disrupted. People are still working remotely, although a lot of people are going back to the office. But I think that the pandemic has accelerated a trend that nobody's talking about. So we're going to talk about it here today. I think, and oh, by the way, I want to mention the other tool that we use is AnyDesk, right? AnyDesk is a remote access software tool. So it basically enables two devices, right? A laptop and another laptop, or a cell phone and another laptop, or whatever it is, where you could use one to control the other. So Kyler, in his, fancy Chilliwack new home, gets to chime in from his studio right into my studio right here in the Storytory, and he controls the computer, does all the camera switching, does all the editing on my computer while he's like 5,000, I keep saying 5,000 miles. I have no idea how many miles it is, but across the country, the continent, okay?
Legit across the
literally
country.
in the west coast of the country. So the point is, we use these tools. Remote access software, AnyDesk. We use Cinemaker to do this podcast, do this stuff. And we're going to use them in conjunction to also not only live edit, Cinemaker piece, right? You switch camera angles and doing different things like 1, 2, 3, and 4, if you want to go that far, right? The screen. And we can go up to 8 angles, but also to do it remotely and remote edit it too. So what do I mean by that? What is the difference? Live editing means that we're switching cameras, and live while we're talking, we're editing the entire piece of content right here and right now. Now, I think that that's incredibly disruptive if you're filming courses, you're making video podcasts, you're making content, you want to make multiple, pieces of content for multiple platforms. Well, I've got a whole mini course that's coming out that's free. That's why we're here filming it, a bunch of stuff that's coming out on all of this and both platforms, both on Cinemaker and on AnyDesk. And they're two different courses with two completely different topics, but that overlap or that kind of meet one another a little bit in that. And doing it remotely by using AnyDesk to then open up Premiere on my computer and actually just, without even having to transfer any files over, everything is done here. So I could go out to the farm, film a bunch of stuff on an SD card, like on this DSLR over here. I'm a Canon guy, so on a Canon. Put the card into this computer in my house without having to upload it to the internet, and then he remotely comes onto my computer, edits a bunch of stuff. I could be sleeping or on the couch or doing whatever, watching Netflix, and then when he's done, logs out, leaves for the day. I have everything already accessible, so I can start publishing it and doing that kind of stuff. And of course, he can publish it too, right? But I think that trend, well, obviously the pandemic promoted remote work. Obviously, the pandemic accelerated the process to getting to remote work because we realized that not everyone had to go to the office to actually do their job. But what also happened is then we created this wage inflation where everyone's salary started to skyrocket. Now prices are starting to skyrocket. But as we add a little bit more, some points to the debt, aka we get off the floor at the Federal Reserve or the Bank of Canada, as we add, more and more and more interest to the debt that many, many, many companies have survived on, two things are going to happen. One, We're going to run out of tax dollars because everyone has losses in 2020 and 2021. Many companies do, at least. Not everyone, but many companies. So the government is not going to have as many gains in revenue, and it hasn't in the last couple of years, and it's not going to as we file this year, right? 2021, we file 2021 in 2022. And then they're going to carry forward those losses for some time. So the government's going to need ways to make more money. And that means they're maybe going to print more money. But then wages have increased drastically, right? Now, not as much as they need to because inflation's also skyrocketing too. So that's another problem. But guess what companies are going to have to do to make up that gap and to cut some of that debt, that free money that they got access to? Well, they're going to have to cut somewhere. Now, what are they going to cut on? They're going to cut on marketing expenses acquiring customers? I don't think so. They're going to cut on the people who are doing the marketing, possibly, right? Are they going to cut on, their rent? Well, is rent going to go down? I mean, maybe. But how else can they do that? They're going to do it with labor. They're going to cut jobs if they can, right? If I can automate your job, wouldn't I? Right? If I could take a job that I'm paying a bunch of people money for and then make it automatic or done cheaper, easier, faster, more reliable, doesn't take days off, doesn't have a kid and take mat leave or pat leave or whatever the fuck you want to call that, right? Like, isn't that easier? Wouldn't you come on, seriously, wouldn't you automate the job?
Well, yeah, of course. It's everyone would. You would save a bunch of money.
Everyone's going to have the incentive for automation, period. Like, there's no ifs or buts about it. So if there's no ifs or buts about it, then I think that we're headed towards an economic scenario, very likely to potentially have a small recession or a large recession, by the way. But we're going to enter a scenario where people have to pay back that debt. And all these government programs are coming to an end. And people are going back to work where all of a sudden, I don't know if I want to pay Bobby $80,000 an hour to do a job that he used to get paid $50K an hour for. Right? I don't know that I don't want to outsource that job, particularly again in the world of remote content production. I'll just speak to that. It'd be way cheaper for me to hire, I'm going to say Ukrainian, because why not send some love their way? And I actually did hire a Ukrainian this week on Upwork, which is ironic because I have a photographer that needed help doing some stuff and we wanted to do some composite photos, and I'm not going to tell you about what, but you'll see the photo come out one day. But the point is that we hired someone from abroad who is cheaper. Now, in this case, I hired a Ukrainian, showed support, right? Showed support for the Ukrainian people. We're going through a lot right now. But I could have easily hired somebody in India or Bangladesh or Vietnam to do the work. And if that work can be done remotely, completely remotely, and when I say completely remotely, they can film and edit without having to have even the fastest Wi-Fi, and they don't have to have the expensive computer that you need to have. See, Kyler's computer back at home, and not to dig on your computer here, Kyler, but it's not that great. Like, you're gonna he'd rather remote
to your brand new M1. Mine is not even M1.
Close. Not even close. It's not even close to the level of speed and opportunity. And this will save you a lot of time. So which one are you gonna edit on? You're gonna use your current computer to tap into my computer and edit on my computer.
It saves me a cost too, $6,000 price tag for the maximum everything to on
buy
the
your own
Apple
equipment
computer.
Yes,
because it's
so
outrageous.
what's the next logical thing? Right? Like right now I'm hiring the Canadian Western privileged person who's going to charge more money than the Indian, and I was an Indian from India, right? Person. Most likely. Why? Because the cost of living in India aren't the cost of living in BC. So who do I have to pay more? And is one person better at the job than the other? Well, maybe. I'm not trying to say that Kyler could be replaced by an Indian tomorrow, but it could be. Like, it's possible. So do you think that companies are going to have the incentive to go down that rabbit hole? To say, wait a second, we just came back, everyone got their jobs, all these other things, the subsidies are going down. Now we have to get competitive again because we don't have free money pouring in. We don't have 75% of people's wages being paid for by the government somehow. That's why the wage inflation also rose, because there was CERB money, right? CERB in Canada was free money, because if you lost your job to COVID, blah, 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 and I put quotation marks because a lot of people didn't lose their job to COVID. They just quit and they just left and then got the free money, right? Because they were getting paid more doing that than they were getting a part-time job. So why not? Right? But now all those government programs end between now and the end of 2022, roughly, in Canada at least. Okay, that debt comes back. Like that debt's going to start to have to come home. And that debt will get more and more expensive if some of them bear interest, and if some of those don't bear interest, it'll go whatever. But the point is, the interest rates are going up because they have to, because inflation is super high. They have to. And we're going to see a reverse tidal wave, I think. We're going to see the reshoring of manufacturing jobs and the offshoring of skilled, talented labor jobs. Look, here's a stat that you can fact check this. Actually, we'll bring it up. I'll say it and then we can find it. Actually, bring it up. You just type it in as I say it, okay? The number of engineers that graduate in China versus the total number of engineers in USA. That there are more people graduating in engineering every year in China than there are engineers in all of America. But here's the thing, as a real stat, okay? There are more engineers graduating this year in China than there are engineers in all of America. At some point, when they speak really great English and they understand really good stuff, and maybe China's not the one you believe in, maybe India is the one you believe in, okay? Maybe it's another country you believe in, but maybe it's in Dubai. I don't care. It's not about where the job is. There is some capacity for your jobs to shift drastically. And I think we're going to see the reshoring. I mean, the war with Russia and Ukraine is saying, hey, we need to make our own energy again. We need to make our own stuff again. What about the masks and all the stuff related to that, or vaccine production, PPE stuff, right? We have so many of our drugs are dependent on being, manufactured elsewhere. So we're going to see reshoring of stuff like that, chips, global chips, right? Semiconductor chips, where there's this whole potential thing with China and Taiwan and everyone else. I mean, we're going to have to reshore that. That's why Intel's doing it. I think it's somewhere in the what they call the Rust Belt or whatever, right? Point being, we need to consider what that means for your 9 to 5. I say your 9 to 5. Maybe you're watching this and you're an entrepreneur. Maybe you're a freelancer. Maybe you're creative. Maybe maybe you're a farmer. I don't know. But 9 to 5s are going to change. I think that we're going to see a shift in 2022, the beginning of it. We've already seen the beginning of it through COVID. Now we're going to see it in 2022, 2023 quite powerfully. And that can disrupt everything. If you can remote produce content quickly, affordably, and easily through systems like Cinemaker and AnyDesk, it's amazing. And you can do it with better and better and better kind of cloud-like software, recording multiple angles, re-edit later, and then use. And then I was even saying this with Cinemaker, and it was, by the way, this is patented Cinemaker, by the way. If you use this idea, it's mine. There should be software, facial recognition software, so that it knows when I'm going from this camera to that camera, and it should automatically be done. Right? So over time, between automation, reshoring, and the need to bring now talented work, and I say talented work, not that blue collar work isn't talented, it's actually more talented in my personal opinion, okay? We'll get into that, the farm. We'll actually talk about that in 5 seconds here. But I'm talking about what is called professional work, like white collar work, will start to outsource itself to other countries. And they don't need to have the best infrastructure, because that is why they didn't, it wasn't going that route because we were sending manufacturing jobs and they didn't have the infrastructure. Didn't have the good internet connections or an internet connection at all. And even if they didn't have the right computers, like computing power. And that's still true. But if they could start connecting to your computer and working on your computer, they don't need that power. It's like connecting to a giant Google supercomputer, just like we do with AWS, right? Or servers. We don't need the power to be in our computer. We can just connect to the server, connect to the cloud. So that trend is going to happen. And how you invest with that and how you go about that, well, the first few podcast episodes this season are actually, our next episode is going to be Vince Guzzo, who's a dragon on Dragon's Den, right? So for those of you who don't know, it's a precursor to Shark Tank. It was actually stolen by the Canadian side of things, and Mr. Wonderful is on that. But Mr. Sunshine, who's Vince Guzzo, comes on and we talk a little bit about investing and that kind of stuff. We talk a little bit about the politics of what's happening in our world, how we're polarizing a bunch of stuff. Again, you could go check out that episode. But I think we're going to shift and change. So if everyone else is zigging, how are we zagging? That's like my by the way, this is my tagline for 2022. Everyone else is zigging, we're zagging.
You're going to hear that a lot in season 8. You hear that a lot in season 8.
But what does that look like, right? Everyone else is zigging towards metaverse and NFTs and all this other stuff. Okay. I'm interested. You know what I mean? It's interesting. I think the metaverse is just nonsense. My personal opinion. Maybe I just sound like an old man now. But I think that while everyone else is running in that direction, I want to run towards